The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We apologize for the delay. We were having some technical difficulties, but I want to welcome you to the Civil Rights for School Nutrition Programs webinar. My name is Jacqueline McGowan, and I am the Compliance Officer with School Nutrition Services. Again, I want to welcome you to this webinar. Remember to keep documentation of this employee continuing education on file. You want to make sure that you have the Civil Rights Continuing Education title, the date, which is on November the 15th, and also a roster of those who are here in this continuing education opportunity. During this presentation, we will learn about civil rights as far as what civil rights are and how those rights impact the service that you provide to students and to the families who participate in your school nutrition program. Okay, let's see how we get this to move. You all bear with me for 1 second.
Hey, Jacqueline, just open up your preview screen and just go to and click on the next slide that way.
Do what?
Open up the thumbnails, open that up again, and just click on the next slide. Do it that way. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so what are civil rights? Civil rights are non-political rights of a citizen. These rights are guaranteed to us as U.S. citizens by the 13th and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution and the Act of Congress. Civil rights, all of our regulatory authorities is found in the Food and Nutrition Service, Instruction 113.1. This was issued in November of 2005, and the purpose of this instruction was to establish and communicate policy to provide guidance and direction to the USDA FNS, which is Food Nutrition Services, and its recipients, who is the SFA, and the customers, who are the family members and the students. It ensures compliance with and enforcement of the prohibition against discrimination in all FNS programs and activities, whether they are funded in part by federal funds or whether or not they are funded completely by federal funds. So since this is your source documentation, I would recommend that you either bookmark the FNS instruction, or if you have the ability, I would suggest that you print it so that you can have it as a guidance. And you will find that documentation at this web link right here. So when you're looking at the FNS instruction, you're going to be looking, when you're looking at the appendices as far as what relates to school nutrition, at the end of the FNS instruction, school nutrition is spoken about in Appendix B, Appendix E, and Appendix F as listed on this slide. So if ever you have civil rights questions or civil rights issues, then you want to make sure you go to the end of the FNS instruction 113-1, and you're going to look at the end, and you're going to find specific information that is specific to our program, again in Appendix B, E, and F. So what type of things are we going to talk about during this webinar? We're going to talk about definitions. We're going to talk about the responsibility of the SFA and also the state agency. We're going to talk about public notification, assurances, the civil rights training, how we collect data and report it, what a compliance review is, how to resolve non-compliance issues, and also how to deal with complaints of discrimination. So again, we're looking at the regulatory authority of civil rights. You always want to know the foundation or the history of why we do what we do. So if you are interested in the authority of civil rights, then you would find in Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was a product of the growing demand of the early 60s, which was launched by the federal government, and it was in response to racial discrimination. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in federally assisted programs, which school nutrition is one of them. No one in the United States shall, on the grounds of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, nor should they be denied benefits of or subjected to discrimination under any program who is receiving federal financial assistance. the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987, was issued to ensure that there is non-discrimination in federal programs, whether, again, they are funded in whole or in part. So let me give you just a couple of examples of racial discrimination as it relates to school nutrition. An example of a discrimination based on race or color is treating or speaking to a child differently, perhaps using slang, for example, or in a friendlier manner because of his or her race or color. As far as national origin, an example of discrimination would be assuming that a student doesn't eat a particular food because of their national origin. For example, assuming that a student who is of Middle Eastern descent does not eat pork. Can be considered a civil rights discrimination. In the school nutrition program, all customers need to be offered the same food choices, and then they have the option to choose what they want to eat. As far as the regulatory authority for civil rights as it relates to age discrimination, this is the Act of 1975, and it states and it ensures that no person in the United States shall be, on the basis of age, be excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any program receiving federal financial assistance. So, for example, if a child is younger, they need to be offered the same portion size as other students who are their age. For example, you can't give a quarter cup serving of a food item to a younger child just because they are younger, if you are offering a half cup serving to the rest of the students according to the same meal pattern. Title IX of the Education Amendments, which is in 1972, it is designed to eliminate any type of discrimination on the basis of sex in any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So, for example, you would not offer a smaller food portion to girls compared to boys just because they're girls. Just because girls are physically smaller, they might participate in sports, and they may need similar calories to those of boys their ages. So, in essence, the same size portion should be offered to each student, regardless of if they are male or female. Let's look at the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. These are all related to civil rights. Section 504 mentions it prohibits discrimination on the basis of handicaps in programs and activities receiving or benefiting from the federal financial assistance. The Americans with Disabilities Act took effect on January 26, 1992, and it prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. Also, the Americans with Disabilities Act enables an individual with a disability to enjoy equal opportunity in employment and services. So managers and assistants who are at the school level must work with the school and children that are disabled or mentally challenged. They need to be offered, our students need to be offered the same choices and serving sizes as the other students unless they have a properly completed and signed medical statement on file, and they require special accommodations. Something that I did forget to mention at the beginning is if you have a question, please use the GoToWebinar panel to submit that question. And what we're going to do in the essence of time is we're going to compile the questions and answers, and we will provide it by blast email within the next couple of weeks. We just ask that you keep in mind that next week we do have a Thanksgiving holiday. So if you have a question, if it's an urgent question, then you are welcome to send me a direct email. But if it's just a question that you're just wondering about and you don't mind it being shared with everyone else on this webinar, then we just ask that you submit it in the control panel, and we will send it out to everyone in a couple of weeks. This is the non-discrimination statement. We know that there are questions on which statement to use when, but when space allows, then this is the non-discrimination statement that you use on your communications. This lets people know exactly what their rights are as it relates to the school nutrition program. This is the entire civil rights policy statement. And again, it should be used in its entirety on your website and on documents that are printed for your program. Now, if you have questions about when to use a smaller version or a reduced version of the NDS statement, then this is what you would use if you have a limited space. And it says the USDA is an equal opportunity provider and employer. So you can use the shortened version where space is limited. However, when space is, when it allows for enough room to fit the entire non-discrimination statement, then that is what needs to be provided. This instruction, the FNS instruction, applies to all programs and all activities for any school, district, or facility that is receiving federal funds, whether they are funded partially or completely. So again, this FNS instruction, it applies to everyone across the board. So let's talk about what our obligations are as it relates to limited English proficiency. In August of 2000, the enforcement of the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was issued, and it stated that individuals with limited English proficiency, or in other words, individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who also have a limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English, it just states that we cannot discriminate against them because of the language barrier. It is important that school nutrition programs provide outreach in other languages. Again, school nutrition programs and also our subrecipients must take reasonable steps to ensure that we are providing our customers with what they need, even if they have a limited English proficiency. Recipients of federal financial assistance, they have to provide, again, meaningful access to the information, whether it's free and reduced applications, whether it's questions about verification or communications about verification or anything else that we do in the school nutrition program. We have to provide information and services, and it should be based on the following factors: the number or proportion of LEP persons eligible to be served by the program, the frequency with which the LEP individuals come in contact with our program, the nature and the importance of the program to people's lives, and also the resources available to recipients and the cost. We ask that SFAs explore the most cost-effective means of delivering language service to LEP recipients. Again, one of the main parts of communication in our program is the free and reduced application. The state agency does not, we do not review and approve other foreign language applications. We just direct you to the FNS USDA website where they have many translations. So we approve the English translation, and then we direct you all to their website so that you can get the other languages to provide to the households that are in your district or your school. And this is where you can find the website, or if you type into the browser FNS USDA foreign translated applications, then that will also pull up what you need. We do have to provide equal opportunity for religious organizations, which just means that faith-based organizations have equal opportunity to participate in USDA programs. A few more things about equal opportunity for religious organizations. One of the ways that is accomplished is by one of the ways that's accomplished is prohibiting discrimination on the basis of religion, belief, or religious character in the administration of federal funds. Also, we allow religion organizations that participate in USDA programs to retain its independence and also to continue to carry out its mission, provided that direct USDA, that the funds are not used to support those activities, but we still allow them to carry those activities out as long, again, as those funds are not used to carry out the activities such as worship, instruction, evangelizing, or recruitment. Religious organizations, they may use facilities to provide USDA funded services, and they do not have to remove their religious art or their scriptures or their symbols. Another thing is we cannot discriminate against them for their religion or their religious belief. And also they cannot discriminate against people coming in if they're using federal funds. They cannot discriminate against others for their religion or their religious belief. And if you want additional information on this particular topic, then you can find it at the link on this slide. So let's talk about how we make the public aware of our services and our programs. We must have a public notification system. The purpose of this system is to inform applicants, participants, and even those who could be potential participants of the fact that we have programs available, the responsibilities of our programs, the fact that we do have a non-discrimination policy, and also how to file a complaint if needed. The three elements of public notification. First, we need to let people know that we have the program and also what their rights are, what our responsibilities are, and also what steps do they need to take in order to participate. And normally public, as far as public notifications, as far as program availability is done, I'm sure most of you all know that at the state agency, we send out a media release maybe around May of every year to let people know about the school nutrition program. And then also at the local level, you all may put information out as well, but you just want to make sure that those that are in your area are aware that there is a program available for school nutrition, what their obligations are, as well as what your obligation is as a SFA. You also want to provide them as part of public notification just information on complaints, that they have a right to file complaints, how they can file the complaint, and what the complaint procedures are. And also the non-discrimination statement. Again, it has to be included on all information and materials. If you have room for the entire statement, then make sure that is provided, because it lets people know that yes, we are a federal program, but no, we will not discriminate against you due to your race or your sex or your age. So we want to make sure that they are aware of the program and also what their rights are as participants. Just as an FYI, that statement is not required. The long statement is not required to be included on every page of your website as far as school nutrition is concerned. At a minimum, the non-discrimination statement, or at least a link to it, must be included on the home page of the program information. One way that we notify the public is our And Justice for All posters, which really communicates what our program is about, and again, that we do not discriminate on people based on their national origin or their disability or even their race or their color. So make sure that your poster is displayed. If you need copies of the poster, then you're able to download and print it from the USDA website, or you can reach out to your zone consultant. I do believe that we have a couple more posters either here at the Raleigh office, or they may have some in their possession. So if you need some more And Justice for All posters, make sure that you communicate that with us so we can get you what you need. But also make sure that the poster is displayed so that the children, the parents, and anyone else who participates in the program knows what their rights are. Public notification. All FNS assistant programs must include a public notification system. The purpose is to inform, again, those who are eligible, those who are participants, even those that are around, like grassroots organizations, of programs or changes in the programs. We have to, as a part of the public notification system, provide appropriate information in alternate formats for people with disabilities. So we have to make sure that we meet the needs of everyone, not just those that we feel the most ease communicating with, but we have to make sure that we provide formats for all people. The policy of non-discrimination is shared through the required non-discrimination statement. So we have to make sure that it's on publications, that it's on websites, that it's on posters, and that it's provided on our information materials. And also we want to convey the message of equal opportunity in all photos and other graphics. For example, if you have photos or if you have graphics, make sure that it conveys a message of not just one race of children or one type of or one age of children, but make sure that it is a message of equal opportunity, especially when you're talking about your program or when you're relaying information about your program. So we also have to give assurances to the students as well as the parents, the family members, and those that are within the public arena. And one way we do this is when you sign your agreement, you give assurances that you will do A, B, and C as far as it relates to the school nutrition program. To qualify for federal financial assistance, an application must be accompanied by a written assurance that the entity to receive financial assistance will be operated in compliance. So again, when you all submit your annual agreement application every year, when you sign the signature page, then you are giving us assurance that you will operate in agreement or in compliance with the non-discrimination laws, all regulations, instructions, policies, and guidelines. So I know that we go through the annual agreement process. We normally do it during the summer, and I know it's easy to sign your name, get your superintendent's signature, or your board chair signature, and your finance officer. I know that it's easy to get signatures, but also realize that it's a contract, and when you sign it, you're agreeing to come in agreement or you're to be in compliance with all the laws and regulations as it relates to the civil rights policies. FNS will obtain a written assurance from the state agency and will ensure that state agencies obtain assurance from local agencies. And like I said, that we do that annually when you all sign the annual agreement. And again, a civil rights assurance must be incorporated in all agreements between state agencies and local agencies. So again, this is stated 3 times. So just want to remind you that when you sign the agreement, even if you don't read the entire agreement, you're agreeing to everything, particularly the civil rights. Specifically for this training, you're agreeing to go by the civil rights laws. And we talked about the foundation of the laws. We talked about what it was birthed out of. So you're agreeing to all of this when you sign the agreement. We at the Department of Public Instruction here in School Nutrition, we are responsible for educating the SFAs as far as the administrators are concerned, and we have to do that on an annual basis. And then the local agency or the SFAs are responsible for educating their staff, anyone that you partner with as far as sub-recipients are concerned. It's someone who's on the front line of your staff, anyone who interacts with applicants or participants. The local agency or the local SFA is responsible for training those individuals. So again, the state agency trains our administrators, and then our administrators is responsible for training those who are considered frontline staff. That can be your managers, that could be if you work or cater a preschool class, or anyone who's in the frontline staff, anyone who interacts with applicants or participants, then they need to be trained on an annual basis. And we do check this when we come on site for the administrative review. Civil rights education includes, you should be talking about data collection, public notification, how to deal with complaints, how to stay in compliance, or how to get out of non-compliance, how to accommodate, how to resolve conflict, and also customer service. So when you're doing your civil rights education training to your frontline staff, then you have to make sure that this information is included. As far as data collection and reporting, state agencies, the local agencies, and other subrecipients are required to obtain data by race and ethnic category on potentially eligible populations, applicants, and participants in their service area. One of the systems for collecting actual racial and ethnic data must be established and maintained for FNS programs. And this is with the exception of the food distribution program. That's an exception of that. When you're dealing with program applicants and participants, you should ask them to identify all racial categories that apply as far as is listed on the free and reduced application. And also self-identification is the preferred method of obtaining data. So let me go back over the third item. What you're doing is asking all program applicants, and normally when they fill out their free and reduced application and they self-declare, self-identify their racial categories, then they can but they can mark all that apply. And this is per the guidance from the Office of Management and Budget. Collecting and reporting participation data. In instances where racial ethnic data is collected online, then provisions must be made for applicants and participants to self-identify. The ability to verify this data by some manner can include signing a printout. It must be some type of manner in which they can self-declare or self-identify. Data must be collected and retained by the service delivery point for each program as specified in the regulations. Don't forget that records must be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. Make sure only the appropriate authorized individual has access to the data. And when requested, when this data is requested, and it may be possible, it's possible for it to be requested, it has to be available so that it can be submitted to the FNS. So it's not something that you want to try to pull together at the last minute. You want to maintain that information so that if it's requested by the state agency or by the national agency, then you'll be able to provide it when requested. Okay, so I know that this is a lot of information as far as civil rights and data collection and all the foundational information, the history. So we're going to take a very quick break and then we'll resume the training. So don't go anywhere. We're going to have some announcements and then we'll get back into the training. Donna?
Certainly.
Okay, so we have a lot going on in school nutrition. During this season of Thanksgiving, we want to thank you, school nutrition administrators and staff, for all that you do to serve the children here in North Carolina. It does not go unnoticed. You all are the unsung heroes, indeed. So now we're going to talk about compliance reviews. As we mentioned earlier, the state agency reviews the local SFA, and then the local agency is responsible for reviewing their subrecipients. And there are 3 types of reviews. We have the pre-award review, the post-award review, and then the for cause review. And also, when we have findings that are significant, then we have to report that information to the reviewed entity as well as the FNS office. So let's talk about the pre-award. I'm not sure how many of you all remember actually having a pre-award, but I know that we do it quite frequently for the new charter schools that are coming on the school nutrition program, as well as the new non-public schools. We also are required to do it, of course, for the residential child care institutions. Any school that is interested in participating in the school nutrition program has to have the civil rights pre-award conducted prior to them starting. We have to make sure they're in compliance with the civil rights requirement, again, before we give them the final approval. The post-award is normally done during the administrative review, and what we look at are things that kind of trigger concerns as it relates to unusual fluctuation in participation, the number of complaints filed. If you receive 2 or 3 or 4 complaints, then it's likely that we're going to look at that particular school or that particular SFA during an administrative review. Also, if we receive information from grassroots or advocacy groups, individuals, state agencies, or even federal offices, if we receive any information, then we will also look at that particular school or SFA during an administrative review. And also, if there are any unresolved findings from previous civil rights reviews, then that SFA will be looked at during an administrative review. So what do we look at when we come on site? We look at the fact that there is equal opportunity for all to participate. For anyone who is eligible, any household that's eligible, they have an equal opportunity to participate. We also look at case records to make sure that they're coded coded by race or ethnic origin. We look in the offices or in the cafeteria or at the entry point of where the children come to receive their meals. And we make sure that it's displaying the And Justice for All posters, make sure that it's in a prominent area. And also we do check to make sure that it's the correct non-discrimination statement that's being provided on the website or on the written communication from the school nutrition program. Something else that we look at, we want to make sure that there is availability of the program information to anyone who is eligible, anyone who is participating, and anyone who desires to apply. We look at the fact that the racial and ethnic data is collected based on our records retention law, which is it should be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. We look at the way that you process complaints. If there is a complaint that comes in, is there any follow-up? Is there any resolution? We check into that as well when we come on site for an administrative review. And then we do also make sure that there was continuing education provided for employees, that it was conducted, it was maintained as far as who attended. For example, this today, when we come on site, let's say you have an administrative review next year, we're going to look back to see, well, did this SFA, did they attend the training? Did the administrators attend the training? And then also, did he or she train his or her staff? And then when did they train? Who attended and what was the date? And what was the training material that they used? So we check all of these items when we come on site for administrative review. There are times when we have to do compliance reviews for calls. We may get a complaint into the Raleigh office. They may get a complaint at the Cyril office and then channel it to us, and we are obligated to check for compliance as far as it relates to civil rights. When we do have to do a compliance review for calls, we look at whether or not the participation data indicates that a particular group in a specific area is not benefiting from the food nutrition program. We also look at reports of alleged noncompliance, whether they're made by the media or grassroots organizations or advocacy groups that need to be resolved. We look at reports of alleged noncompliance that may be made by other agencies, such as the Department of Education or even the Department of Health and Human Services. We look to see if there are any noncompliance that have not been resolved. And also we look at whether or not there are patterns of complaints of discrimination that have been documented. We check into that if we have to do a compliance review for calls. So what is the definition of noncompliance? I think you all have heard, I'm sure you've heard that term a couple of times, but it just is a finding and is based on the facts that any civil rights requirement that is provided by law, instruction, or guidelines is not being adhered by us as a state agency, you as the SFA or the local agency, or any other subrecipient. And so it has to be a factual finding. It can't be, I think they're not meeting the requirement, or I believe they're not. It has to be something based on facts. Non-compliance, it may result from an ME, which we have here at the state agency. It may result from a special review. It could be an in-depth investigation. It can be found during an administrative review or possibly during a technical assistance. But if we find a factual finding that there's non-compliance, it can be found during any of these times, and then we are obligated to resolve the issue. So let me give you some examples of non-compliance. If at the local level you deny an individual or a household the opportunity to apply, you deny them the opportunity to apply. I'm not saying you deny their application because they don't qualify, but you deny them the opportunity to apply for program benefits, and it's based on the fact that they are part of a protected class. providing F&S program services or benefits in a dissimilar manner on the basis of a protected class, except if it's a disability accommodation. So if you have a protected class, a person who's in a protected class, or a household that's in a protected class, and you kind of provide them services, but it's not in the same manner, it's not consistent across the board. Also, selecting members for planning and advisory bodies in such a way as to exclude people who are members of a protected class. Selecting F&S program sites or facilities in a manner that denies an individual access. So if you listen to the theme of this, noncompliance is a lot of times it's a factual finding, and it's based on denying access based on the protected class for whatever reason, whether you denied them the opportunity to apply to the program, whether you treat them differently because of they're part of a protected class, or you're selecting members for a group to make decisions regarding something within your school nutrition program, and you deny them access because they're part of a protected class. You just have to be careful. Sometimes even the perception of wrong can lead to a review. And then if we find the factual findings, then it can be considered noncompliance. And also the over-verification of a categorical eligible household or participant. These are all examples of noncompliance. Okay, so noncompliance is effective. The effective date of the finding of noncompliance is the date of the written notice to the state agency, the date that you receive the written notice, or the date that your subrecipient receives the notice. That is the effective date. And so what happens once noncompliance is determined, what we try to do is resolve it at the lowest possible level. So if there is a subrecipient who submits a finding for noncompliance, then we want to try to resolve it if possible at the local level. However, if it needs to be elevated to the state agency, then of course we look into that, but we try to get voluntary compliance at the lowest possible level. To achieve compliance with state agency, what we have to do is provide immediate written notice to the local agency. If it's elevated to us, then we have to provide a notice to the SFA or to the subrecipient that indicates what the areas of noncompliance are, and also what the corrective action is that needs to be taken, or the action needed to correct the situation. Also, the state agency may negotiate with the local agency or the subrecipient to achieve compliance. However, if corrective action cannot be achieved within 60 days, then the report of findings and any and all support documentation is submitted to the F&S headquarters. So after that, what happens next? So once it's submitted to the F&S headquarters, they make the determination for further efforts. They may refer it back to the state agency with suggestions on how we can remedy the noncompliance. However, if they send it to us and we've exhausted all compliance efforts, then it is sent to the Civil Rights Office, and they prepare a written communication back to the state agency, to the local agency, or the other subrecipient. So what you find is if it's not resolved at the local level, at the lowest level possible, then and it's not resolved at the state agency or at F&S, and it's elevated to the Civil Rights Office. Food and Nutrition Services headquarters then must be advised and provided with pertinent documentation, and then they will decide if further voluntary action should be pursued. The SFA will be given 30 days to resolve the matter or agree to corrective action and submit a request for reconsideration. If the letter fails to achieve compliance within the 30 days, the case will be sent to F&S headquarters for formal enforcement action. So if you notice, it kind of takes the hands out of the immediate authority, and it keeps elevating until it's resolved. So that lets you know that civil rights, which we should know anyway, is a big deal. At the very last resort, if if compliance cannot be achieved, if there is no resolution, then FNS assistance is terminated, which means that the SFA no longer receives federal funds or financial assistance. And we do not want it to get to that point. Okay, for complaints of discrimination, all complaints alleging discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, age, sex, or disability, and whether they are written or verbal, they must be processed within the time frame. You have to let the person who is alleging discrimination know that they have the right to file the complaint within 180 days of the discriminatory action. And only the Secretary of Agriculture may extend this timeline of 180 days, and that's only under special circumstances. Please know that when there are complaints of discrimination, they may be written or verbal, and they can also be anonymous. And there is a form that can be used, but it's not required, but it can be provided and as part of the FNS 113 instruction. When there are complaints of discrimination, make sure that certain key information is requested. And if you want to know the specific how the form looks exactly, then just pull up the FNS 113-1 instruction and look at the back, and you'll see the form. You want to make sure that complaints to the state agency are forwarded to the Civil Rights Office for processing. There is a letter of acknowledgement that is sent to the complainant. However, just note that age discrimination complaints are referred to a different agency, and that agency is the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service, and that has to be done within 10 days for mediation. As always, the parties are always encouraged to resolve the issue at the lowest level possible so that it can be done quickly. It can be the resolution can come expeditiously if that's possible. However, if it has to be elevated, then it would go from the local agency to the state agency. And if there are findings, then of course, then corrective action has to be released or completed. Well, I want to thank you for your participation in this Civil Rights for School Nutrition Programs Makeup webinar. If you have questions, again, we will compile any questions that we receive, and we'll send it out by blast email, or we may just, I guess I would have to get with Donna to see. It may be easier to, whether it's easier to just post it to the website or send it out by blast email, but we will definitely get the questions and the answers to you. And also a copy of this PowerPoint will be posted to the website once we get the opportunity to kind of go through and make edits. Being that next week is Thanksgiving, we don't give you a specific timeline, but it will be posted to the website as quickly as possible. So if you have questions, we hope you were able to submit it through the panel, or you can reach out to your zone consultant, or you're more than welcome to reach out to me. My name is Jacqueline McGowan, and I'm the compliance officer for school nutrition. So you've probably communicated with me in the past, or if not, then you can call the Raleigh office and they'll transfer you to my number. You can find additional information on civil rights on our website. And again, we do appreciate your participation. Thank you for all that you do for the children of North Carolina. We pray that each of you all will have an awesome Thanksgiving break, that you have a chance to kind of fellowship with your family, get some rest as we gear up for the next part of the school nutrition cycle. But again, thank you for your participation, and I hope you have a marvelous day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Jacqueline. Everyone, keep in mind that you will receive an email with a link in it to complete your evaluation within the next day or so. Someone else does that, so I'm not sure exactly of her timeline. But look for that in your email, and be sure to complete that evaluation so that you can get your certificate and therefore receive your credit for your continuing education. So you can add that to your hours of continuing education credit. Again, we thank you for being here this morning. Like Jacqueline said, if you have any questions, just email us or give us a call, and we will help you as soon as we possibly can. Everyone have a great day, and have a great holiday. Be safe and enjoy your family. Have a good day. Bye.